Alright everyone, welcome back to another video. Today I'll be breaking down my verdict predictions and a few bets for the upcoming UFC event tomorrow. I've been out of action the last couple of events, been super busy, and yeah, I usually do a recap at the start of a video, but there's too many fights to kind of go back over, and yeah, thought I'd just start at the bottom of this one. So starting with Khamzat Chimaev versus McKee. Chimaev is 1.14 times and McKee's 8.12 times. Both pretty big guys, both pretty rangy guys for welterweight, both stand at 6'2". Both super dangerous as well. All of their career wins have been via finish. Starting with Chimaev, he was super impressive on debut. I think Phillips landed one strike, throughout the round and a half that fight lasted. And Chimaev was just better everywhere. He eventually subbed him, and that, as well as his record, just speaks to kind of his versatility and ability to finish the fight anywhere. In terms of this fight though, I think it's actually quite evenly matched. The odds here, 8.12 times for McKee, is a little off. I think that's too much. McKee's got some nice striking. He's pretty long straight jab, long straight strikes like the jab. He's got the ground game too. He's got 3 subs on his resume as well. And another factor going into this fight is that I know they all made weight, all fighters made weight except for Francisco Trinaldo, but Chimaev fought at middleweight 10 days ago, and now this fight's at 170. He did look fine on the scale, didn't look too drawn out, but that is a lot to put the body through, and even just making that turnaround so quickly. All in all, I do think Chimaev takes this one. I think he's a little better everywhere, and I loved what I saw in that first fight. And McKee is still a little bit too much of an uncertainty for mine. However, from what I have seen, he does seem plenty capable and tough enough to drag this one out. And just not that I think the weight cut's going to be a problem for Chimaev, but just it kind of maybe speaks to the fact that he may struggle to finish. So I'm going to play it a bit safe. I'm going to go Khamzat via decision at 4.06 times, which I think is a pretty good price considering he's such a heavy favourite. Next fight along, Alex Oliveira versus Peter Sabota. Oliveira is a favourite here at 1.2 times and Sabota's at 5.98 times. Oliveira, he should win this fight, but you just couldn't trust him at all. You cannot put your faith into Alex Oliveira. He is one of the more exciting fighters on the UFC roster. He always looks for the finish, but that's what speaks to his unreliability and what takes away from the ability to put your faith into him. In terms of Sabota, it's a pretty interesting timeline. His first stint in the UFC went absolutely horribly. I think 3 losses, maybe a win in there, I'm not sure. But then he left and he got like 5 straight first round submissions. Got re-signed, has gone 2-2 since coming back. 2 solid wins, 1 pretty shit loss. It was a TKO to the body. And then 1 tough loss, 3rd round TKO against Leon Edwards, which I'm totally fine with that loss. That was a year and a bit ago now, and Leon Edwards has looked very good since. In terms of striking, I think Cowboy is better. He's better on the feet. Sabota has been finished with strikes before, and like I mentioned, finished to the body. Shows a bit of susceptibility there. But at these odds, I can't trust Cowboy at all. Maybe if it was a pick 'em, I'd be all over Alex, but not here. I am seeing a moment for Cowboy. And if he's winning comfortably on the feet and rocking Sabota, it could get a little dicey. But if he drops him, he'll chase Sabota to the ground, and that's where his poor IQ kind of comes into things. And it's not like Cowboy doesn't have ability on the ground. He's got 5 wins via sub, but it's probably where he's most vulnerable and most unreliable. 4 of his 8 losses are via sub, and that just speaks to kind of his slips of concentrations on the ground. Or he's got a guy hurt and then he'll chase him down there. And Sabota loves submission game. I think 10 of his wins are via submission. He loves the rear naked. And yeah, if he gets rocked, I fancy him to kind of try and wrap Alex up on the feet, on the ground, sorry. And then there's also the possibility that he shoots his own takedowns and tries to get this to the mat because he feels he'll have the best advantage there. And he does have wrestling ability, 1.76 takedowns per 15 minutes, which is not bad. It's above your average. Either way, Sabota and Sabota via subs, far too heavily priced here, 34.02 times, and I'll be taking that, and I'll also be rolling it in the first round due to that early finish history of Sabota and Cowboy's fast starts, meaning that this one could be kind of a bit hairy, a bit chaotic straight away. Exciting fight though. Alright, next one along, Paul Craig versus Gadzhimurad. Pardon me, Antigulov. 3.45 times underdog, and Paul Craig coming back there at 1.41 times. Again, this is a pick and fight. Antigulov's far too much value here. Neither guy has a good gas tank or a fight IQ. In terms of resumes, I'd say Craig has come against the better competition, but he hasn't won against them, so read into that what you will. Craig, last fight out, did start really strongly against Shogun, probably a 10-8 round, but then just looked terrible from there. And he is too comfortable getting into bad spots on the ground primarily. And although he is really good BJJ artist, it leads him to getting into some horrible spots, and he can't do that with Antigulov. Super strong grappler, 15 of his 20 career wins via submission. And you know, this should be a grappling match because both guys love to grapple and both guys love their jiu-jitsu. Antigulov averages 8.7 takedowns per 15 minutes, which is ridiculous. And yeah, on the feet though, you know, every round starts on the feet. Antigulov has been put out a few times, and you know, Paul can swing for the fences. He could clip Antigulov for sure. But yeah, in terms of Paul striking, it's pretty wild, pretty poor technique, and I'll back Antigulov to be able to evade them, get to the hips, and get this to the mat, where you know, Craig fancies himself, so he doesn't really like to stand up or try and get up too often either. And once it does hit the mat, I think that Antigulov has a slight advantage because he's so aggressive on the submissions. And I think he catches Craig just in a submission while Craig's not really making an effort to get back up. He's trying to play around, work for his own subs, you know. Craig is a finish or be finished guy. That last fight against Shogun was the only fight in his career to ever go the distance, win or lose. And yeah, I'm taking Antigulov to sub him, and I'm taking him to sub him in the first at 19.15 times. That's a great price there, I think. We'll see. Okay, Carla Esparza versus Marina Rodriguez. 1.38 times for Carla Esparza and 3.64 times for Marina. Pretty much unsure as to why Carla is such a big favourite here. The bookmakers have Rodriguez as a favourite, and that probably fits my my mind more on this fight. Esparza's so undersized. She has always fought undersized. She's 5'1". She's a little rangy, 63-inch reach. But you know, Rodriguez, she has good defensive wrestling. Esparza always kind of, even with her shorter stature, manages to get in on girls and make it work for her in this strawweight division. But Rodriguez has kind of proven herself capable. Cynthia Calvillo did take her down plenty of times in their last fight, which is a little bit worrying, but I think that's a perfect kind of fight to have before this one, to kind of highlight some issues perhaps, or some holes in your game, in her game, and yeah, try and wrap them up before this fight against Carla, who is one of the better wrestlers at strawweight. In terms of Marina's resume, she's undefeated. She absolutely mauled Tisha Torres and Jessica Aguilar. massive wins there, as well as a draw to Marcos, which, you know, isn't so good, but Marcos is a good fighter in her own. And then also a draw to Calvillo in her last fight, which looks better now after Calvillo moved up to flyweight and really just dominated Jessica I in her last fight. It does worry me that Calvillo got Marina Rodriguez down so many times, but yeah, I think that it's a good fight to have before this one for Rodriguez, and you know, it's not a loss, so it's not like that's going to get into her head too much. In terms of Esparza, she is actually rolling right now. She's on a 3-fight streak, mid-tier competition in the other two, but then close split decision win against Michelle Waterson in her last. But you know, in terms of her career, she's fought the far better competition, and yeah, she does have the more UFC experience, so that's on her side. But essentially, I'm going to back Rodriguez. She is a far superior striker, and that size advantage, I think she should use it to chop away at Carla from a distance. You know, she does love to kick. I think she hit Tisha Torres with like 17 leg kicks and kicks to the body as well. And yeah, I think she's going to take growth from her last fight, adapt her wrestling ability defensively to kind of keep Carla off of her. Esparza is tough, and I see her coming forward right to their final bell, but those straight punches, I can see her bloodied and battered. bit of a red nose by the end of this one, I think, with those jabs to the nose, and I think she loses a decision, because if this is a stand-up affair, Carla just cannot match the output that Marina has. I think Rodriguez has landed over 100 strikes a couple of times, and Esparza, you know, in her 4 UFC fights, and Esparza hasn't done that once in her 10 to 15 odd UFC fights she's had. So yeah, taking Rodriguez as the underdog here, and the decision, paying 4.63 times on verdict. Alright, Fabricio Verdum versus Alexander Gustafsson. Fabricio's 6.88 times, and Gustafsson's heavy favourite at 1.17 times. So yeah, Gus is super short, but he should be far too much on the feet for Fabricio. I took Verdum against Oleinik in his last fight. I thought he wasn't quite as washed as he evidently is, because that was horrible. I thought Fabricio would have the striking advantage, and he just didn't. Slow winging punches from Alexi were landing on Fabricio clean, and they were rocking him. They were having an effect. He looked kind of wobbly multiple times, you know. And those are horrible striking out of Alexi, you know. He's a BJJ guy, and Fabricio's a BJJ guy as well, but I just thought he would have better striking, you know. And then now you're talking Gus, who's a really good striker. He's coming up from light heavyweight. On the scales, he looked a little bit chunky, but he looked to put the weight on better than the guys previous to him who have moved from light heavyweight to heavyweight. I'm talking Latifi, Vellante. You know, they pretty much just got fat. And you know, always when a guy moves up a division, they're going to have a speed advantage, and Gus is already quite a fast light heavyweight, and he's going to have a massive speed advantage on the feet here against Verdum. Yes, if it hits the deck, Verdum has a big BJJ advantage, and if it sees the ground, it could spell danger. I pretty much feel like that's the only way Verdum wins this fight, but I highly doubt it getting there. 85% takedown defense for Gus, and much better footwork, and like I was saying, much quicker to evade kind of those entries out of Fabricio and just kind of piece him up. And if it's on the feet, it's big trouble for Verdum. Crisp striking of Gus probably puts him out at some point, especially kind of considering the accumulative damage that Fabricio's taken across his career. He's getting on, and you know, and just seeing how the effect of Alexi's punches, what the effect was on him, you know, getting rocked. I feel like Gus is miles above Oleinik regarding that. You know, everyone thinks that. However, only being a 3-round fight, Alexander's first fight at light heavyweight, I'm just going to take Gus by the decision. Yeah, we're talking like 1.8 times for Gus to win by knockout. So yeah, I think Gus cannot lose this fight. If he does lose, it will be a submission, and I'll be crying for the bloke. But yeah, 3.3 times actually decent odds for the decision, and I'll be taking that. Right, to the co-main, bit of a weird slot, great fight card. Weird co-main, I think. Shogun Hua versus Antonio Nogueira, 1.18 times versus 6.59 times for Nogueira. So everyone knows this, we're talking two old veterans. They're both past it a little bit in terms of recent form though. Shogun much better. It's actually quite good. Out of his last 6 fights, he's had a draw to Paul Craig in his last, and then only one loss to Anthony Smith. Nogueira's form a little less pretty. KO losses to Spann and Bader. Sprinkled in there a TKO win to Sam Alvey, but Sam Alvey I really don't rate. And yeah, I did rate Spann into his last fight, so that wouldn't have been so bad. And then Bader obviously killing it at Bellator. But yeah, Nogueira not too many fights over the last few years. And yeah, I think Shogun carries a little bit of an advantage regarding kind of the come on into this fight. These guys have fought twice before, Shogun winning both of those fights by points, and I think that just indicates that Shogun has his number. He's a way busier striker, probably still carries more power, even though he is a little smaller, and I'm going to say he's more durable as well. You know, Shogun did get knocked out by Anthony Smith, and he was wobbled by Tyson Pedro in that fight too, but I feel like Shogun always gets rattled a little bit in a fight and still manages to rally or survive, or you know, just clear his head. So I think it's still there. I think he's more durable. He also throws kicks. Antonio just doesn't. It's another tool for Shogun to kind of utilize, and just in terms of out voluming him, which he already going to be busier, and he also has a wrestling advantage. and that's what we have seen him lean on in their previous 2 fights. You know, get Antonio down. In terms of jiu-jitsu, pretty evenly matched. I'd give it to Nogueira in terms of a little bit of an advantage there, but Shogun's wrestling is too dominant for Nogueira to even work anything off his back, and Shogun rarely gets into bad decisions on the ground. Yeah, he's pretty reliable down there. At this stage in their careers, it's kind of a nothing fight, and I'm just going to play a Shogun decision, just like the other 2 fights have played out, and it's 2.73 times currently on verdict. So yeah, that's the co-main. A little bit disappointing with the co-main, but they make up for it with this main event. It's an absolute cracker. Robert Whittaker versus Darren Till. Whittaker's the underdog here, 2.08 times, and Darren Till is the favourite, slight favourite, 1.93 times. Absolutely crazy good fight. Darren Till was pretty filled out at middleweight. We always knew he was going to be, because he was such a big welterweight. He's kind of a rangy Muay Thai style fighter. Solid straight punches, does throw the kicks, not so much, but he does throw the kick to the body, and a strong clinch game. He's pretty strong, in the phone booth, and with that tire clinch and elbows. Whittaker more of a karate style fighter, really light on his feet and very movement orientated, fast jab, and you know, blitzing combos that he always loves to finish off with that left or right high kick as he moves his head off the center line to the opposite direction. You know, he caught Romero with it, caught Jacare with it, and Brunson, I think, as well. He uses it all the time. He also has wrestling ability, I'd say much better than Till's, but he rarely uses it, as he does rely on his striking and his kind of movement on the feet, that karate, type style striking for the most part. To their resumes, you'd have to say that Rob has fought the better comp. You know, both of these guys have been at the top of divisions for a while, and they've fought good guys. But yeah, Rob has fought the better comp, and for the most part, he's won those fights. Till has kind of had those 2 big losses when he took steps up, albeit a different division, Wood being against Woodley and Masvidal at 170. But you know, Till's only had the 1 fight at middleweight, so we don't have that much data at 185 to really read into. Speaking of that, the Kelvin Gastelum win was solid, no doubt, but it wasn't overly convincing. And you know, KG getting finished so easily last weekend, albeit a sub, you know, and that's not really Till's game. And Kelvin Gastelum is obviously super durable on the feet. You know, it is still slightly concerning for the form out of that fight. And yeah, people want to talk about form on Whittaker's side. I get it. Romero wars and then knocked out by Adesanya. He's a young guy. I don't think his chin is so compromised, and as compromised as what everyone is saying. And then into those Romero fights, people love to say that he lost both. I think he won both easily. The second fight closer, yes, but 3 of those rounds were all his. You know, 3rd and 5th round to Romero, yep, but 1st, 2nd and 4th were definitely Rob's. So to my pick, pretty much if this fight plays out on the feet, I think Whittaker will win, and then if it hits the ground, which probably won't, Whittaker will definitely win that round, and then, you know, have a larger advantage. Till may have the clinch advantage, and his elbows in those spots will give the most danger to Rob. But for the most part, Rob does prefer fighting at a distance, and although Till's going to be the rangier guy, that's where Rob thrives. And you know, using his movement to evade his opponent and then dart in with quick combos, those high kicks, and then, you know, teep kicks to the legs, like that he used against Romero all the time. Those are front kicks, and he does work the whole body. The body less, but to the legs and the head. I see Rob finishing Till in this fight, and I think it's going to be one of those head kicks off the back end of a blitzing combo, but it could be anything. I think Whittaker's got a big advantage here. He shouldn't be an underdog, so I'm playing the TKO for Whittaker at 4.2 times on verdict, and I'm relatively confident with that play. I'm playing it in the second round too. Not too much reasoning behind that. Both of Till's losses have been finishes in the second round, and then a couple of TKOs in Whittaker's UFC career earlier were in the second round as well. So that wraps up kind of my predictions for the whole card. Going to the betting side of things now, the multi per annum, just a quick recap, we're still up 33.099 units, which is good. I'll be laying another unit on this multi, anti-Golovk to win, Shogun via points, Whittaker by KO. That's paying $34.53. For the most part, this card looks like a really good betting card. Yeah, if I'm not going to release anything on this video or go through an undercard value. I'm pretty strapped for time, but I have got a few plays on, so you know, if you guys want to catch me on the socials, you can Instagram DM me at its_tadpole if you want to see kind of what other things I'm on. I know this is late mail, so it might not get the audience. Not that I've got a crazy audience anyway, but yeah. And then also, if you want to follow me on Verdict, it's at ItsTadpole. Get to catch any kind of changes to the main card between now and tomorrow. Shouldn't be, considering everyone's weighed in and everyone seems healthy, but yep. And you can also see how I'm scoring fights on the night, because yeah, I see a few of these going to decision. All in all, if you've stayed this long, I appreciate you giving a listen. Hopefully I'll be back in a week or so for the next fight card. But yeah, cheers for listening.